If you're looking at a thing like the World War, and you're looking at what has come down to us as the history we we have, you need to visit Poland, and in visiting Poland, you come to see literature in buildings. You come to see the stories in people's life. You come to see the sheer evil that was around, and you get to tell yourself, never again in history should we have wars like this. Never again in history should humans become so barbaric and so stupid and so annoying and so sadistic to the point of killing people. But that is not the case. Sudan is still currently in crisis. Syria is still fighting. Old Yugoslavia is still having conflict. Ethiopia is knowing no peace. Nigeria is plagued with terrorism and insecurity. Turkey is having its crisis down there. Brazil is having its sanctions on human rights. X has just been taken down, that particular place. North Korea is still not peaceful. Taiwan is still under threat by China. A whole lot of stuff go down there, and we only get to know this stuff by written history. And we have not been able to tell ourselves that we have to stop fighting. From Faulkner to Dostoevsky to Heinberg to Jem Coetzee to Nelson Mandela to Gandhi to Albert Einstein to all of this, it's man's attempt to make sense of existence down here. To Karl Marx, to Nguwa Thiong'o, to Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, to Obioma Chigozie, to John Chinaka and his strides against all odds to put himself on the global market and to tell his story against all odds. You see these persons striving in resilience to ordinarily get to tell their story. What does it get to tell us? In an age where we are now so afraid to sound our gong, as Amarachi Atama will get to put it, in an age where we are so scared of saying anything, hearing anything, believing anything, holding any principles, holding anything at all, in an age where cancel culture has become a thing so strong that we almost don't know how to live again rather than to live in fear. What does people like this get to tell us? Sound your gong. Contribute your voice to the many things that have come down to be considered life. Sound your gong as it concerns you coming to be understood. Sound your gong and bring out your problems. Sound your gong and let us hear you. Sound your gong and let's understand ordinarily what you are saying. Sound your gong. Sound your gong. Sound your gong. It is very necessary. It is very important you do that. Sound your gong because nobody's going to do it for you. And if you don't voice out your opinions, you die. As much as you think you want to be a writer, as much as you think you want to be a thinker, you have to start to be a better person. You have to start to be a better thinker by starting to think. You have to do it. You cannot just want to think and then you think that's enough. You have to start thinking. You have to start doing the thinking. That is how and only how you can get your hands around whatsoever you're doing. As such, be consoled today, be motivated, be strengthened, be awakened within your soul to ordinarily come to understand that a thing like literature is a thing that has passed down to us, and it's a thing that we ordinarily need. It's a thing we ordinarily need. It's a thing that we shouldn't give up. It's a thing we shouldn't leave to the complete hands and reins of machines. It's a thing that we must build from our levels of critical thinking to our levels of ways of doing things and acting and being. It's a thing that we must comfortably tell ourselves. Indeed, we must try to function as humans. As such, you see the works of C.S. Lewis, you see the works of G.K. Chesterton, you read the works of Mariam Abba, you read the works of emerging writers, you read the works of old writers, and then you ask yourself, what has happened here? We tend to think we are the first to have the problems we have in our lives. We tend to think we are the first set of people to be experiencing depression and sadness and sorrow, or experiencing wars, and then you read the works of Ernest Hemingway. You begin to think you are the only person that is confused, having existential crisis, then you read the works of Jean-Paul Sartre, you read the works of Albert Camus, you read the works of Dostoevsky, and you see existentialism come to its full force, and then you get to see the sheer resilience of man in the face of meaninglessness and trying to forge a meaning for himself. Because the world is like a theater with guests who neither came from the beginning of the theater and are going to leave before the theater gets to end. Similar thing also with the cinema. So they don't understand how it started. They didn't meet the show from the start. They're not also going to end the show. And in between, they're struggling and trying to figure out what ordinarily is the case here, what ordinarily happens here, what ordinarily should I do, what shouldn't I do, how should I go, how shouldn't I go. That is the reality of our life, and we mustn't give up. We mustn't resign ourselves to the fact that life is not going to make sense in the end, because nothing has proven to that particular logical conclusion that there cannot be any sense, or there cannot be senses, or there cannot be meanings drawn out of our existence, as opposed to the whole idea and the argument that humans are busy creating robots capable of pain. That is not the case. Life is not completely rosy, but at the same time, life is full of meaning. We are not machines. We shouldn't look at life that way. And so if we are looking for a whole lot of stuff down in the history of literature and what has come down to us as this, we get to see a whole lot of things. We get to see a whole lot of stuff written down in history. And like James Baldwin will get to tell us, we cannot afford despair, because we cannot tell that to our children. We cannot afford despair. We cannot afford to completely give up on ourselves. As such, we must continue writing. As such, we must continue doing things the way we ordinarily are supposed to do them. We must visit the works of Chinua Achebe. We must read the works of Dostoevsky. We must read the works of Maria Mabal, the works of J.P. Clark, the works of Ezenwa. We must read the works of Wole Soyinka. We must understand the history behind it, the works of Ken Saro-Wiwa, Chimamanda, Obioma, Chigozie, a whole lot of other persons down there who are writing. We must continue to read their works over and over and over again, if we must ordinarily come to understand what is our life here, what is expected of us here. You get to see the likes of the history of someone like Hitler, and then you ask yourself, what if he was a bit tolerated and given a bit of chance, as Bishop Fulton Sheen will get to point out, as to how he ended up being kicked out of a religious house where he was ordinarily studied. What would have happened to someone like Martin Heidegger if he had ended up being a Jesuit brother, a Jesuit priest? Would he have written about the Deja in the way he did? What would have happened if someone like Chinua Achebe ended up being a medical doctor? Would we have had ordinarily the body of work such a person had? What would have happened to J.M. Coetzee if he had continued in his medical practice, as opposed to how he chose and then continued his life? What would have happened to Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie if she had become a medical doctor, or at second thought a pharmacist? What would have happened to her if she didn't leave Nigeria, and if she had not traveled abroad to get to do the studies she ordinarily did, and how she ended up writing? What would have been the life of Binyavanga if he hadn't, against all odds, did what he did? And you get to ask these questions and you don't have all the answers, because in as much as we try to see these people as great figures, they also had doubt. Chimamanda had talked about her depression and how depressing it can be sometimes as a human, which is a normal thing we ordinarily should come to embrace. It's not a normal thing to constantly want to remain in depression, but at the same time, it's a thing we as humans ordinarily should want to give serious attention, more than the way we ordinarily think. We shouldn't shrug it off. We shouldn't push it aside. We shouldn't want to let it go and then just tell ourselves, I'm not depressed, I am a chosen, I am this. No. We get to see these people sad, and many persons take their life in the long run. Recently, we've come to know how Binyi Bandele died, and how he wrote Yoruba Boy Running, and it was the last work he did before he died. So sad. The same way we come to see the life of Ernest Hemingway, and I was reading him a few weeks ago, and I did a short clip on how he ended his life and how I ordinarily cannot understand that particular idea.